There's a shot. Hey, what's going on out there, YouTube family? We are back. I shouldn't be here. I should actually be sleeping right now. But I'm here with Lucas, and we are covering a film from Tribeca Film Festival. We appreciate you guys for allowing Team JVS to take part in it. There's been so many interesting things that we've seen. What's going on, Lucas?
Nothing much. Hey, look here. I'm just getting my voice back. So we are trying to say have the maximum amount of impact in the fewest amount of words. There you go. Before this voice just decides to go to blank all over again.
Basically, maximum effort. So yeah, let's go ahead and dive deep into this. And I let me know if you hear like an echo or feedback at any time. So the movie is No Man of God. We had the ability of being able to check this out like again at Tribeca. The synopsis reads is the complicated relationship that formed between the FBI analyst Bill Hagmaier and the serial killer Bundy, Ted Bundy, during Bundy's final years on death row. That's a brief synopsis for it. But what did you think about it? We have not talked about this movie yet.
Well, let's first say final years. This is supposed to have been over the course of years and not the course of 2 weeks like the movie makes it seem. That's odd unto itself. Because this seemed like you know what? The movie as a whole, it's another Ted Bundy project. We've seen lots of them recently, from Manhunter? I think that was the first one, possibly.
Is that the one with?
No, that was a Unabomber.
Yeah,
and Richard Jewell. It was another one. It was one with Zac Efron, but
Zac Efron
on Netflix. He played Ted Bundy. Like we've seen countless television shows, television movies, theater movies about Ted Bundy, and this one falls right in the middle of all of them. It's not overly special. It's interesting enough to keep you engaged, but it could have been stronger, which is odd because the person who plays Ted Bundy in this one is possibly the strongest I've seen someone play Ted Bundy.
Yeah. I would agree. I think that Luke Kirby, I believe that's his name, he killed it. I think that it was like this inner demon, like that you can kind of feel that there was something off-putting. Every conversation, it was not even so much that he seemed like the smartest person in the room. It seemed like it was always something continuously off with every line of dialogue that he kind of delivered.
Yep.
And I felt like he did an amazing job. And to be fair, I think that Elijah Wood with him partnered off really well as well. I think that honestly, and maybe it's because I haven't seen Elijah Wood act in anything in a while because I haven't been looking at any of his indie films. I haven't seen any of his shows. But I was like, man, Elijah Wood can act. Like I kind of was set off because I was like, man, like the deeper and deeper the movie goes, the longer, towards the last act for me, it started to get really dark. And the weird thing is that they don't really show a lot of, without spoiling anything, they don't show a lot of the violence. They show really no blood or anything. But the dialogue and the delivery of the dialogue sets all the things in motion that your mind is processing what has happened. And people's like reaction to what this man has done is the thing that's the kind of the shock point of this, which I thought I really enjoyed because I was like, how did they pull this off that they didn't show one bit of blood or gore or anything? But I still felt like this evil, like aura around this, technically these two individuals, but really abound the character or the person, Ted Bundy. I actually like that. I actually like that. Between the second and third act, I was kind of like, this is getting on that dark level that I was like, this is being acted very well. But I do want to talk about the delivery, though, because I know you got some things to say about it.
I'm about to say, we are completely different here. The third act is what made the movie fall apart to me. Like, it was an unnecessary at times burst of emotion from Elijah Wood that I'm assuming it was to like bring you into the thought process of the FBI agent, but none of it even rang like something that I would expect that character to do. Like, and that's the problem. It doesn't come across as believable. It comes across as just like, okay, we're gonna try to creep you out here. Like the whole time before then, it's been setup after setup after setup. And we're going to get to a pivotal moment and attempt to creep you out. And instead, for me, it took me completely out of the film. Between this and another character close to the end who plays a civil attorney. Between them two, I was like, okay, yeah. It went from a very interesting character study, which it should have stayed with, to this over the top, overly emotional type of film. And I'm like, oh man, you ruined a great opportunity to have this separate itself from a lot of Ted Bundy projects, and instead you brought it all the way down.
Yeah, so for me, I agree when it comes to the attorney Carolina, or I forgot, Caroline, I believe her name was, because I was like, when she showed up and her first interacting with Elijah Wood, I was kind of like, oh, okay, they're gonna kind of phase her in for a second, and Ted Bundy's like, yeah, I don't need you anymore. I've got my own obsession to deal with. But instead, they continue to allow her to do things and progress things. And I was like, I don't really understand the digression of her relationship with him. I don't understand what she's trying to do. She's not a good attorney if this was the decision she made. But it's hard because I don't know how much of this is based on factual information versus them trying to dramatify it up for Hollywood purposes. I agree with you when it comes to Elijah Wood, when it comes to realistically, based on how we know how this ends, and they tell you exactly who this man was and how it ended. I mean, it's kind of unbelievable to me, a certain thing that kind of happens towards the end. But at the same time, it's kind of like I do question, like, how close can you get to darkness, right? Before you start to try to ponder, because they do certain things with imagery and shots that make you kind of progressively gauge, like, where is Elijah Wood's character really trying to go with this? Yes. And how much control does he really have? I think I like that cat and mouse game, but they went too left. Yeah. They kind of
exactly. That is the issue. And I know a little bit about the FBI agent here that supposedly broke Ted Bundy, where he finally reveals a lot of stuff. And when you hear that agent talk of his thoughts about Ted Bundy, I couldn't see him getting overly emotional like Elijah Wood here does. He was when he speaks, he's very technical about everything he thinks about Ted Bundy, down to him thinking he was a complete psychopath the entire time. Yeah. But here, it's like he grows to be sympathetic towards Ted in a way, and you're like, no, you knew coming in the door who this man was.
So it's weird. So I agree and I disagree. On camera, the way that they filmed it, it makes you, I don't know if this is Elijah or if this is the way he was written in this capacity. It makes you feel like in certain moments that he was really drawn into the situation. But then there were moments like he has some cut off lines of dialogue. He's like, oh no. Yeah, no, he's insane. Like this is no, like, because there was a final conversation he has towards the end where I was kind of like, okay, thank you for that, because I was worried that you lost your mind. But there's a scene that I wanted to bring up that I think that I appreciate the director for doing. Again, there's no violence. You don't see any gore or anything. It's not even a lot of language. It's the verbiage of what the heinous things this man has done and the way that Kirby is able to articulate them through his mannerisms, through his methodology with his character, that makes it feel real and visceral. And he has this conversation with this preacher, and they focus in on this girl that's just listening to the whole entire thing, and she's just mortified. And like you see her start to weep. And what I took from Elijah's character was that he felt sick being around him, much like the girl. That's what I took from it. But I don't know, because I was curious, because there's a couple of different people, the same exact thing happened. Like when people started to hear about him or things, like they were just kind of just like, I don't know. I was curious your perspective on that. And those kind of shots.
Again, it just felt gimmicky to do it that way for me. Not the setup. The setup was great, but just to the focus of that nature, it just came across as a gimmick. But again, knowing just enough about Ted Bundy and just enough about what this agent actually said about Ted Bundy, I get what they were trying to go for here. Like some of his actual words were that he found his obsession with murder as mythical. He found him to like the things that Ted ended up telling him about how he felt that early in his life when he was killing people, he was an amateur until he got into the prime of his career. And I'm guessing that that's why it was shot that way, to show just how obsessed and how captivating he could be. But at the same time, I'm like, you could do that in another way where it doesn't come across and feel like a gimmick, because you're waiting for a payoff there and there isn't one. Like all I get you focusing on this young girl, you're focusing, just as his words were saying, like a tear or something's going to come down her eye, or she's going to break, or she's going to try to hurt the pastor speaking to him.
Yeah.
Nothing of that nature happens. And instead you just get a shot that I questioned. Was it a shot that director said this would be cool instead of saying this is functional? And it felt like a shot where this would be cool to do this, not necessarily something that propels the film at all.
Yeah. And I guess the last thing we got to talk about, the gaps in time. Because when we first, see the agent, he's talking about, well, nobody wanted the case. Everybody was kind of like, I don't want it. And he's kind of like, okay, I'll do it. And then they start to write each other. And you're kind of like, oh, okay, where is this going? Then they have their first meet. And after that, it seems like it was only like maybe 2 weeks later. But I guess it was like a year after, because they showed, I forget what the time was. Was it 1980? I can't remember what the dates were, but it was a whole year worth of time. But if you weren't looking, you wouldn't know. Nope. Because it doesn't look like they aged at all. Like in the way that the backdrop is, it doesn't seem like time flowed in a yearly fashion. It almost seemed like it was just months or weeks. And I do think that was a flaw, because I didn't gauge that unless I was really paying attention to the dates that were kind of sometimes coming up. But
that's part of the issue with this film, is that time lapse didn't work. I said at the beginning of this, I felt like, oh, what, this is 2 weeks? So we did this whole thing in 2 weeks? Because they didn't do a great job at pinpointing the time lapses that are happening here. Even the time lapses from him starting to interview to we get to him getting where his case is over.
Yep.
And it's that's a big gap of time, and they don't show us anything to let us know how big of a gap of time that is. So when you do something like that, it's a flaw in filmmaking a bit. Yeah. It's just one of the things where you're like, man, age him a little bit. Not big. It could be something small. Maybe in a year, people really don't age. But if he is supposed to be having the impact on Elijah's character as you're telling us he did, it should show across his face eventually that Ted, he's gone from not respecting him to considering him his best friend. Like that's a progression that we needed to see. And instead we don't. And when we don't see it, it doesn't come across as believable.
Yeah, there's a film that I'll show real quick that I felt like they did a really good job of like time and the progression of time. And I mean, it was certain small little things they did, whether it was a backdrop, whether it was facial hair, but more so just the weariness of the situation.
Yes.
And I think that they could have easily done that to either one of them. I thought they were going to do that to Elijah Wood's character because I was just like,
that would have been a character to do it to.
Like, I was like, how much longer are he going to sit there and have to do this? One thing they could have done, in my opinion, and I think it was intentional. I think the director was like, you know, he gonna have this one phone call with his wife or whatever. Yeah. But I was kind of like, they could have easily showed them, you know, in the beginning and maybe the child's age and just kind of seeing how much time is weighing on them to show like a gap of time. But they don't really focus in on that. They just try to keep it centralized to just them two. Now, again, I think that the acting for both of them is really good. But to be fair, I haven't seen Elijah in a very long time. But for me, I was just like, dang, my man can still act. I'm happy about it. But
and here am I coming across. This is like the 8th movie I'm at the festival, and I'm like, oh, this could have been better. And Luke Kirby, I think he acts circles around Elijah in this movie, and that's the problem. Like he just eviscerates him when they're on screen together. And I don't know if it's because they wanted the FBI agent to come across that way, but if he comes across that way, how could he ever be respected? Oh, and that picture right there doesn't make it better, Sam. Dang, man. That picture don't make it better, but it just did come across as the best performance. It didn't come across as the best performance for Elijah Wood. I was like, oh, wow. Like, I was not expecting him just to like run laps around him in this movie. And he did. And it could be as easy as simple as case. Maybe, just maybe, he was miscast in this role.
Who, Elijah?
Yeah.
I really don't think so.
It's a certain depth that I expect from this type of character that I never got from him. Sometimes it's little things that you can see behind the eyes of the actor as they're performing that engages you. Nothing of that nature happened with Elijah Wood here. It was just blank. And I'm like, oh, this is a character that you need to show the anguish in him. And I think that goes along with why I didn't feel like he aged at all during the movie, is because I don't think Elijah put a performance together that could show it. So I wondered, for me, I was wondering if Elijah was trying to stay true to the actual FBI agents, you know, the actual person, the way that it all played out versus the way that it's being scripted in this film. Because that's what I kind of felt like. I felt like the way that the FBI agent is being scripted, they scripted him to be this certain kind of way specifically, but I mean, I don't know. It's hard. It's hard for me to gauge. But even early on in the movie, the agent comes across as a tactician. He does. And then you don't like, and the only way he comes across as a tactician is the way he speaks. But we don't see it ever over the face of Elijah that will make me think he would be this person. And that's, again, that's the flaw. Like, that's your job. Make it believable. Because any words can come out your mouth. But if I don't believe that you are that person, like Denise Richards in, and I know this is a horrible comparison, but Denise Richards in James Bond when she played a doctor, and you're like, no. I know the words that coming out your mouth would be, you're a doctor and you're saying a lot of scientific stuff. You're no doctor, and I can see it. That's how I felt about Elijah in this movie. Like, you're no FBI agent. You didn't break one of the biggest cases in history before meeting Ted Bundy. Like, I didn't believe any of that from him. And instead, I believed everything Luke did. Boy, did he embody Ted Bundy here to a T, down to the charming parts of Ted Bundy. Like, he kills it, and that's what leads him to act circles around Elijah Wood here.
Do you think that Luke has any kind of award contention for this performance?
Has this film been picked up yet?
I'm not really sure. I know that they were talking.
Or is
about
it is it a true independent?
I can't see enough to know just yet, but I'm pretty sure it's going to get picked up if it isn't already. I
would almost say that I don't think anyone in this film is going to get any form of awards attention, because I don't believe the film is going to be reviewed as good enough to even propel it towards an award season. Like, normally you would have to blow people away, and this film does none of that. Instead, it gives you what we've seen a multitude of these serial killer doc drama-esque films do, which is they just give you the basics and then try to throw in some creepy stuff in it, but it just doesn't come across as believable. And I hate to say like I'm bashing Elijah Wood, but boy, it's his fault.
So real quick before we go, what did you think about the score, cinematography, and just the look of the film as far as the tone?
The film looks great.
Yeah.
I think the director here does an amazing job of setting the tone for the film.
Yeah.
The score is creepy.
It's really
it's extremely creepy, the score. And again, he sets up shots well. But boy, if you directors, and this should be something other directors should look at, especially up and coming directors.
Mm-hmm.
You can only go so far with cinematography and tone and score, because if you cannot pull out the performance that is necessary from your actor, it doesn't matter how well you set everything else up.
Yeah.
Your primary goal is to draw a performance out of the actor. And especially when you have an actor whose name is as big as Elijah Wood's is.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of people are going to be drawn to this based off of Elijah's name and then connection with Ted Bundy, and just kind of curious to see if he's going to do very well in it based on the circumstance. I actually really enjoyed the film. I liked Elijah Wood in it, but I do agree with the with the way that the trajectory of his character goes. I think we can both agree that Luke just nailed it and crushed it. I do hope he gets some kind of award contention. I think he's worthy of it. But like you said, it's a weird time frame to even be considered at this point. And I don't know how the distribution is going to be or how the people are going to receive this film either. I don't know about a normal consumer, how they're going to look at this film, because there's not anything that's happened, technically. I mean, it's just the very last part. And what was that one movie with oh my gosh, Tom Hardy? Was it Capote?
Oh yeah, but remember, critics trashed that movie.
And I don't think that it's gonna be like that, but I worry that same trajectory might happen. But I did enjoy it. I did find a lot of things that I really liked about it. I thought it was very creepy. Third act, again, I agree with Lucas, but I felt like it was cool for me because I was like, oh man, it's freaking me out. Because there's a scene, you guys, I want to talk about it, where Elijah Wood and Luke Kirby are holding hands and having a conversation. And it's so gimmicky, I'm not gonna lie. But the way that Luke Kirby delivers it and the way that it's shot, regardless of the way that Elijah Wood interacts with what he said, I was just like, this is freaking creeping me out. Like, I'm not gonna lie to you guys. Like, I don't need to know nothing else about Ted Bundy after this movie.
See?
This is a lot right now.
No. You must learn more, and you must see better projects about Ted Bundy, because they're better projects about Ted Bundy than this one was.
Oh man. But yeah. Yeah, what do you rate this?
Ooh. I'm gonna give this a 4 out of 10. And those 4 all go to Luke Kirby. All 4 of them. All 4 of them go to him. Like, I don't believe there is another performance in this film worth watching. Not a single one. Not a single character. I didn't care what happened to anybody or anyone's trajectory besides his. And that should not happen in a movie where I know where he's going. I know how the story ends for Ted Bundy. What you needed to do was draw more interesting supporting characters around him. Or better yet, he's not even a main character supposedly in this movie. It's Elijah Wood. And I didn't care at all for his character in this movie. So,
yeah,
4 out of 10. 4 out of 10.
I can definitely agree when it comes to that with a lot, because again, all they had to do is add like a family element or victims of the families go and talk about it, not all the atmosphere that's going on the outside, everybody celebrating and all this kind of stuff. Like, there wasn't any kind of focal points to pivot where the emotional resonance was there. For a big part of it, unfortunately. For me, I did enjoy the cinematography. I did enjoy the atmosphere, the soundtrack, performance of Luke Kirby. I did enjoy Elijah Wood, even though I don't know where he's going with certain things with that. I'd rest this at like a 7 or 7.5 out of 10. I actually really did enjoy it, but I do agree that there are a lot of things that could have made this really special. And it's some simple things. And then some drastic change I don't see. It's hard for me to say, like, who would you have put in the driver's chair to be the lead then?
Oh, if we like to talk about like just on this type of circuit, because you can't necessarily get the big names, so you want to automatically eliminate all of them because this is still closer to an independent film than anything else. For hell, Mark Ruffalo would have been amazing in this movie. Like, just someone who has the ability to draw out a performance more than just speaking.
Yeah,
that's the best way to put it.
I was thinking of Michael Shannon, honestly.
Yeah, exactly. Same thing.
I think Michael Shannon, he can do so much, like as far as range, conversation, and just delivery. That he would have been really interesting. But it's kind of weird because, again, the biggest star here is Elijah Wood. So it's kind of like it would be a really big trade-off. And director Amber Seeley, I mean, I think she did a really good job in terms of the actual film as an overarching. But I do think that there are things that they could have done drastically and small that could have made this a little bit better. But hopefully you guys... Oh, go ahead.
She made the mistake of making a Ted Bundy movie and assuming everyone knew everything there was to know about Ted Bundy. And that is a mistake you should never make. Because as you said, all you had to do was introduce the families in it and them give their accounts of what happened. And it makes the conversation between him and Elijah even better if you get the emotional resonance behind his victims and what happened. Or if we see the impact of it. You literally have a key scene, and this is not spoiling anything. This is a key scene in this movie between Elijah's character and the female other attorney character. And she gets emotional, and Elijah tells her something, and she says, as a man, have you ever heard that before? And then he gets on the phone and calls his family. I didn't even know you had a family. Like,
right.
Why are you on the phone now? Like, it's... Never make that mistake when you're making a film, no matter how well known you think your villain is. You have to give people something to care more about the situation. And it would have been impact statements alone could have done great here.
Yeah. And I mean, I don't want to, this is not a direct comparison, but there was a show, it was a Showtime, the Comey Rule. And the thing about both chapters of that, specifically the second chapter of it, that made it so much more emotional or resonant in a capacity is they showed not so much the two pivotal people, but how it's affecting everybody else, their families, the situation that people were really feeling about why is this happening? How did this happen? You know, and I think that if they would have just done a little bit of that, it would have changed a lot of the dynamics of the film. But I mean, I don't know. Maybe as budgeting, casting, I don't really know. I think that's where we kind of delve into how much they could put into it from a casting standpoint. So yeah, 7.5 out of 10. I think I probably leave it at a 7, but yeah. Hope you guys enjoyed our review for this. We've got a lot more coming from Tribeca, and Lucas is spearheading that because I am indisposed. I have a whole new baby and a 2-year-old to deal with, and I need to be asleep right now, actually. So talk to you guys soon. Make sure you leave a like. Make sure you subscribe. And if you have anything you want to know about us, go into the description bar below. Definitely check out our social media, and we will talk to you about anything else. And if there's anything at Tribeca you guys are interested in us talking about, please let us know in the description bar below as well. Peace, people.